Hey everybody, hopefully you can hear me. This is Eric. It's the Ewok version of Eric today, and because as we've been advertising, today is actually May the 5th, but we are celebrating May the 4th, and so May the 4th be with all of you. Hopefully everyone's starting to chime in or come on in. Let us know where you're from. Let us know what's going on. How are you celebrating the 4th? So we're going to kind of just ease into things today. I'm going to let Donovan, my trusted and faithful co-host, say a few words, introduce himself, and yeah, let us know what do you think's going on and what's going on this week. Well, today, I mean, Donovan.
Hey everybody. So excited to be here. Happy Star Wars Day. It's a little late. We're a day behind. But like I was reminded this morning, today is actually Revenge of the Fifth. So it could still be a Star Wars Day if you want to think of it that way. But we already have a lot of people in the chat here with us. We got people from sunny places like Syria. We got places from people from rainy places like Vancouver,
Is that
Portland,
Transom? Welcome,
Oregon.
Transom. You're always our rainy friend, or sorry, our friend from the rainy Pacific Northwest. Who else you
Yep,
got? Anyone else we know?
yep.
Some
From
new faces?
Washington, we've got all kinds of people. Matt's here. Like
Oh,
there's
awesome.
a lot of familiar faces in the crowd today.
Cool. This is gonna be a fun one. So I've been trying to. I don't know. I'm not a promoter. But I am starting to realize that we are trying to grow our audience. We're trying to grow our reach. We're trying to reach new people and of course expand the ideas and expand our capabilities. Right. So we're always trying new things, and I like to hear that when people come, when we've got new people, and the word's getting out. We're spreading the good word.
Yeah.
So I don't really have anything else to say other than we got a lot of fun to do today. We are picking up as you can see this model behind me, not there. It's actually there. My screen's mirrored, so it's actually here. You might, hopefully, most of you or some of you came to last week's stream because that was Aaron doing an ATST for sort of the pre May the 4th stream session, and he did a great job with this model. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick this. We're going to pick up from here. And I'm less of like a traditional modeler, more of like a storyteller. So what I want to do today is actually create sort of a scene that to me is inspired by Return of the Jedi, because it's also, this past month was the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, its theatrical release. So I'm getting old, because I remember I was born. I was young, but I was born. I was alive when that happened. So let's just get to it. I'm going to shrink my head here, say a few things, do some housekeeping items, and we're just going to get into it. All right, press my magic shrinking head button. I should call that my Beetlejuice button. All right, I'm going to shrink our chat a little bit. Let me see. I'm sorry if I cut off some of the chat. It's kind of a balance. Some of you like it. Some of you don't. I know we're trying this thing with the chat. I think it's cool. Anyway, I want to make sure that it's useful, though. If you can't read it, it's not helpful. If it covers too much of my screen, it's not helpful for me. So still trying to get that balance right. I'm a Depeche Mode fan. If you didn't catch that reference, get the balance right. So let's see. Where do we want to start?
Some people coming in from Mexico, Ethiopia, Iran. We have an international audience today. Randy in YouTube says, "I'm old enough to have seen Star Wars during its first run in theaters."
Whoa.
So
Yeah, I did want to catch the re-release. They did release in some theaters the Return of the Jedi, and I actually watched, leading up to this, I watched A New Hope and then Empire Strikes Back. And then I hadn't got to Return of the Jedi. I guess part of me was like, I don't want to watch it on the small screen. I want it on the big screen. So I'm still hoping I can do that. We'll see. Hopefully today just kind of re-energizes that passion to go out and make that commitment and get out of the house for a little bit and go do that. So I want to point out that, as usual for me, my studio setup, for whatever reason, sometimes gets a fraction of an audio delay. We're always trying to troubleshoot that and make sure that the experience is as frictionless as possible for our viewers. That's why I have my mask here with me. If that happens, Donovan, you tell me if my audio gets out of sync, and I'll just put that back on, and then that way we don't have to worry about it. See, problem solved. Otherwise, I'll assume that we're good. So I'm just gonna get right into it. That's kind of I love the banter, but to be honest with you, I love teaching more. I mean, this is just why I do this with SketchUp. Why I do SketchUp Campus is because I just love to just problem solve and then show off some of the tricks and things. So I'm just gonna get right into it. Unless there's anything else, Donovan, we got to say as far as like housekeeping and announcements or comments.
Well, Surf Beatnik in YouTube chat says, "Hey Eric, my sister worked on the film at ILM." That's pretty cool. That's exciting.
Oh, well, okay, that reminds me. Actually, I was going to say this. For those that don't know, I actually wanted to go to film school, not realizing that you don't go to film school to work at ILM. You go to like art school or engineering, or you go to landscape architecture or architecture. You go somewhere else. Because those guys, when you watch the documentaries of Industrial Light and Magic in those early days, I just thought that's got to be the most exciting job. And then I also graduated high school right as when you think about the Matrix coming out, Jurassic Park had already come out in 1993, Toy Story 94, the Matrix in 99. Computer graphics by that point had pretty much, by the time I graduated high school, pretty much taken over. So my dream to do it the old school way, like those rebels, the real rebels, the ILM folks, yeah, didn't get to do that. But anyway, that's why I get to do it here. Get to do it with you. Get to do it in SketchUp.
Keeping the dream alive.
Keeping the dream alive. So I'm just gonna kind of roll. And as always, Donovan, I just kind of talk. Just interrupt me. Shoot some comments and some questions. Everyone ask your questions. I love answering questions. Obviously, try to keep them as much related as you can here. If it's something that's different, we can always post that to a forum. We'll have a conversation there. If it's going to be a different topic. Love to answer those questions too. Anyway, yeah, fun facts, love trivia, love Star Wars trivia if anyone's got it. So I'm just going to start by asking myself, I didn't do any pre-prep for this. What I did do is I grabbed some stuff from 3D Warehouse. And the reason why is because I knew I was going to do this scene. This is a good point to say that I was looking online for like images from the film and thinking like, okay, I want to do Endor. I think that's, to me, Return of the Jedi. When I think of Return of the Jedi, I think of Endor moon towards the end. Speeder bikes, that kind of stuff. Ewok village. That's what really sticks with me. So I saw this image online. I don't know who the artist is, unfortunately. I'm sorry, I can't credit you right now. I'll try and do that later in the comments. And I thought this is really cool because it's not a scene from the film, so it's almost like an ideal, a stylized or a fan art version of something that happened in the film. I thought this is a good place to start. There's some elements that I like here. If we talk about this just for a second. Because what I want to do, because those elements, understanding these elements is going to tell me what my approach is when I get into SketchUp, because we could go a lot of different directions. Firstly, we've got trees. Some of them in the back are very tall, so you can see most of the tree. Some of them in the foreground, you can't. You just see like where they're coming out of the ground. They could be stumps, or they could be just the trunk. So that's one thing we can think about when we look for information or entourage. We've got several types of ferns. It looks like a maidenhair fern or western sword fern, perhaps. Even something like a Mahonia. I mean, I know this was filmed in, correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of near where Skywalker Ranch is, right? Is this, I'm trying to think, Sonoma?
It's the Redwoods in California.
Is it Redwoods? Yeah, but I can't remember if it was in Marin County, somewhere in that area. I don't know exactly. But so that gives kind of an idea of the plant palette we're working with, if we want to be true to where it was filmed. There's also a bunker in here. So there's some architecture to model. And then most of this is going to be stuff where I'm not going to be modeling stormtroopers from scratch. So we're going to do some material. We're going to kind of get we're going to kind of do a little bit of work on Aaron's ATST, because that really is the hero. You can see it shows up twice in this view. So if I do copy this faithfully, we'll have it twice, once kind of in the background and once in the foreground. But then that's not the only part of this story. So that's pretty much it. I will really like the lighting. So if we do get to rendering in V-Ray, you can see the atmosphere in this is really, if I kind of zoom in just a little bit, you can see just as it goes into the background, there's just some really cool kind of fog filter effects. I know that this is more of like a painting, but we could totally recreate that sort of look in V-Ray. So I'm hoping that we can spend the first half modeling and the second half rendering. We'll see how it goes, like always. So with that, I'm going to keep this image just kind of in the background handy. I'm probably going to pull this up several times and just ask myself, I'm not trying to recreate it exactly. It's just kind of like, that's kind of a cool guide that I want to follow. Yeah, so Aaron did a great job. I mean, I don't think I could have done this in 2 hours. In a way, it's almost like it looks simple, but it's like a lot of things are deceptively simple. But one thing when we go especially to rendering is that we're already missing materials. And I kind of thought about that. I want to show you a couple of quick tests. I want to see what you think. And then I want to show you a different method that I kind of thought about just in that hour leading up to this stream. So let's do this. Let's start by copying a couple of these over. And because the reason why I'm starting with rendering is because it's going to tell me how much work I need to do to get this model ready. So I can just kind of check that off the list and then move to the environment. I want to start with Aaron's model out of respect for the fact that we're carrying his work into this stream. So there you go. So in V-Ray, for those that don't know, V-Ray, the latest version of V-Ray, they moved their materials into Cosmos. So that's their cloud library. So I'm going to type in iron. I remember that's one that I used in the past. And there's one called Iron Dirty. And what I want to do is import that. And now what I do is just click on that. Now it shows up in my V-Ray window. So when I go to my asset editor, it's going to show up. And there it is, Iron Dirty. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click and say apply to selection. And there it is, Iron Dirty. It's applied. Now that was fast. That's literally quick and dirty to try and add like a metal texture to this. I want to try one more just for comparison. Just to kind of see. I'm not quite know what's going to work, and I'm not sold. I'm going to use my extension. One of my favorite extensions actually is TomTom's material tools. And it's because I can just click remove some from selection, and it wipes everything out. It doesn't matter if it's got 100 materials nested, it just wipes everything out. I do that all the time when rendering. I just wipe out whatever's there, and I just reapply it myself. Pro tip. All right. Over here, if I type in just metal, I know that there's some metals that are weathered. I want to find something that's kind of weathered a little bit. Like here's one and here's one. I don't know what's going to work. Let's just try it. And then the same thing, we just have this selected. You'll notice I pre-select this before I even choose my material. So then I can just come over here and say apply to selection. So that's kind of how fast I can just apply material. Let's see what that looks like.
We got some clarification in the YouTube comments saying that the film was in the Muir Woods. Am I saying that right? Muir?
Yeah, Muir. John Muir was the kind of explorer. What was John Muir? Yeah, he was kind of like, he was pretty instrumental in the West, sort of for outdoors and hiking and trail and stuff. Okay, so I want to match a viewport. Sorry, it's hard. I'm like thinking and talking at the same time. Yeah, love it. Keep those facts coming. What I'm doing is just, I kind of have this little standard setup in V-Ray. Whenever I have a blank file, I'll often just come over here, come into global illumination, expand the advanced settings, turn on ambient occlusion, maybe bump that up a little bit if I feel like pushing it, if it's more stylized. And then what I do is my match for now, unless I know what my composition is, it's easier for me to match my viewport than it is to have something that's different from my viewport. And then lastly, I bring my quality slider down, turn my denoiser on, and switch the denoiser preset to mild. So I do 2 or 3. I just do those like 3 things every single time I set up a V-Ray. I can save those settings. Do those? What's that?
Out of curiosity. I said, why do you do those 3 things?
Why do I do those? Well, I turn the quality slider down because I only put that back up later when I'm ready to do a final render. So first thing I do is try and keep interactive renders going fast. Second thing I do is match the viewport, because otherwise what you're doing is you're clipping stuff. So if I move something or zoom and then I might lose it unless you turn on, I'll give you an example. If you don't, like if I did 4:3 and turned safe frame on, you can see 2 things it does is it changes your camera angle. So if I have it fixed to a camera, if you don't match viewport, it's going to change your camera FOV. But the second thing it does is it puts those safe frame bars on there. The safe frame bars tell you that like if I'm like this, I'm not rendering everything that's in that gray area. So one thing I want to do is just basically, for me, I just kind of by default say match viewport. It preserves my camera angle. So whatever I see in SketchUp is what I see in V-Ray, and I don't lose anything accidentally by cropping. It's little things. Ambient occlusion just gives you that little bit of detail, like especially for something like this where you kind of want that indirect illumination. So I turn that on. And denoiser takes out the noise. But I set it to mild because I don't want to take out all the noise. So even as a test render, I still might want the denoiser just to kind of, again, it's just kind of like good housekeeping. That's why I just do it whenever I set a model up. I just do those like 3 things. Lastly, and I don't always do this, but most of the time I'll come in and I'll go into the frame buffer and I'll add what's called an exposure correction. It's because by default, V-Ray will have a very high highlight burn. You can see actually my head's blocking it. So if I move it, if I pull that highlight burn down and then I compensate by pushing the exposure up, what you're going to see is that the areas that are blown out, there's a lot less blowout. So for me, I feel like that just makes it just easier for me to see sort of what I want to see sort of at the end of the day. So you can see what that looks like. I mean, this pattern feels pretty uniform, and it almost feels too uniform. It almost feels too metallic. I think of this more like gunmetal, where it's got like a little tiny bit of a sheen, like an aircraft, but not shiny. And then if I come over here to this iron material, these are the best ones that I could think of without spending a ton of time. This iron material is kind of cool. Same thing, it's a little dark, it's a little smooth, it's a little too shiny. We can pull that back if we wanted to. But what I wanted to do is I'm kind of making the case that beyond these two metals that V-Ray gives you, to do this properly, we'd go to Substance, we'd go to Substance Painter or something like that. So, but we're not going to do that today. I'm sorry. So you can see that there's, if you look at the movie, there's all kinds of cables and cords and bolts and things that Aaron wouldn't spend time modeling. So what I'm going to do is I kind of thought in my head right before this stream, I said, is there a way that I could like shortcut that process? So I watched a YouTube video, and this guy was painting a model of it, a physical model, and he was showing you how to paint it. And I was like, oh, I love that grunge. I love the streaks, and I love the little chipped paint, and like that looks weathered. That's great. So what I did is I just cheated. I just did a screenshot, and I said, there's the front of it. And then I did another screenshot. So I matched it. I matched it up. I essentially took an elevation view of the model, of Aaron's model. And then I just lined up the screenshots so you can see kind of what that looks like. If I pull up in this image, there's the leg. So there's the texture. That's just me grabbing a screenshot from a physical model and then just positioning it and aligning it with where it would sit on Aaron's model. And I want to show you the result because I'm curious to see your thoughts as to whether or not this is even a good method. I don't usually do this. I just said, yeah, let's give it a go. So you can see here's
Aaron's popping in the YouTube saying that it didn't have a better model to work with.
Yeah, and if Donovan sounds a little underwater or robot-y, it's because he's out of the office, so he's actually remote today. So I just want to give you a heads up because I hear it. So don't give Donovan a hard time. We're all doing our best here. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. What did Aaron say? Is he giving me a hard time already? I'm just getting started.
I think he's giving himself a hard time. He was saying it's a shame that you don't have a better model to work with.
No. I'm saying that this is perfectly fine. But I'm saying that to render, we need more information, right? For rendering, more is better. For SketchUp, for modeling, usually keep it light, keep it nimble. Rendering loves more detail. So I'm spending way too much time. I just want to get into this. I want to kind of wrap this part up and we'll get right into modeling the environment. So here's his same model. And let me show you what I did to it. I just took those screenshots. I don't think it's great. It was just using the parallel projection. So if you go in here and you turn your hidden geometry on and you right click it and you say texture, texture position, right? There it is. So all I did was I just took that same one and I just lined it up and scaled it best I could. Does it match perfectly? Of course it does not. But from a distance, if this is going to be in the back, let me render that again. Let's just render that really quick and see what that looks like. So you can see here's that render now. And if that's going to be in the back, I don't know. I think it works. I hope it works. We're going to use it anyway. So Aaron, what do you think? Is that okay? Do I get your permission to use it, to go this route? Okay. I'm going to go this route anyway. I hope I get his permission. So that's it. We're going to go for it. I'm going to close V-Ray for now. We're going to pop back into that. So we need to think about, again, I haven't done any thinking. That was as far as my thinking went. The other thing I did was I grabbed some stormtroopers, which we're going to get to in just a second. So if I go to 3D Warehouse, there was a file here today. I think it's this one. All I did was just grab some stormtroopers because I was like, I'm not modeling those. So I just went on and I looked, and to be honest with you, it was kind of hard to find good ones. I found a few, grabbed a few ones and thought, okay, we've got the scout trooper. We've got a couple of the scouts and we've got a couple of the stormtroopers and we've got one of them he's a desert trooper. So I don't think he needs to be in the scene, but they did put him here. So, yeah. Okay. So that's it. I'm gonna come back to these when we need it. But that's it. That's all I did. I haven't done any pre-prep. I have no idea how I'm gonna do this. Field of view. Let me double check this. 35. That's good. I like to work a little wider. I'm gonna push that to 50 for right now and just see what that does. And are you guys okay? Good. You're seeing my keycaster. Just want to make sure my keys are on. You can see that. So I'm gonna start with just creating an environment for how big of a scene, assuming that the sort of chicken walker is sort of in the middle of the scene. I don't know how much I'm going to need to render, but using fog and using some camera tricks may be a way. Oh, Aaron, I did add this. I added a gun, and since Aaron did such a great job modeling this as components, he only modeled half of it. I could just come into this component and then paste that in place, and then that gun shows up on both sides. So I did add that. I felt like that was missing. And so Aaron, yeah, more guns, right? More guns. This is the United States of America. More guns. That was sarcastic. So what we need to do is we have to make a decision here. We could do the ground plane, or we could do the bunker, and we can let the bunker kind of set our camera position. Or we could set the ground plane knowing that we don't exactly know where the camera is, but we can sort of start to lay some stuff out and start to put some trees and stuff, and then we kind of know where the bunker goes, and then we'll just get to the bunker. I'm going to ask the people in the chat, do you feel like it makes more sense to do some architecture first, or do some landscape architecture first? I don't have a poll, but maybe if there's whoever the first person who chimes in, we'll just go with.
We'll see what the first one comes up as.
Okay.
Andy in the YouTube chat says guns be like cowbells.
Guns be like cowbells. Yeah.
You need more. Got a fever. You need more.
Okay.
More cowbell.
The reason why I ask is because we're going to take two different approaches. Because we're going to look at some assets.
Landscape first.
We're going to do landscape first. Thank you. Okay.
Landscape first.
So great. Then the reason. So what we're going to do is I want to start with something that some of you may be aware of, but there's a really great asset for photorealism is Megascan's bridge. So I don't know if you know this, but Megascans was purchased actually by Epic Games, so that they can link these really high quality, these are photo scanned assets. So they're actually scanned in the real world and they're cleaned up, and then they put all the PBR material maps on them, and then they put them into their library. And if you use Unreal Engine, you can use these for free. And I used to have an account, so I think I have some credits still. So I have an old account before they picked up on it, before Epic took it. So what I want to do is we can look at things like surfaces. So surfaces are materials. We can look at things like assets. I really like these things I call them surfaces, but you get like these ground scans. So somehow I want to see, how do I filter? Sometimes you can go by collection. Sometimes the best way to find is by collection. And I'm in a forest. So I'm going to kind of scroll through these here and see if there's something like a forest. Like you can see there's some really deserted sci-fi landscape, a scary bathroom. Oh my gosh, this would be fun. How about a broadleaf forest? I think this might be the closest thing, even though we may have some Doug firs and some redwoods. I think this might be a good place to start. So what I want to do is I want to look at some trunks. Let's grab some tree trunks first, and we'll place those. Now I have one downloaded here. This is a beech trunk. If I didn't have it download, I just click download. Or if I want to do one that's even taller, like there's some cool snags, we might do a fallen. I'm going to download this one. And I'm going to let that download. And I'm going to go over here. There's a maple trunk. I like the ones with the big roots. So I'm going to get one with like a big fat root. I'm going to download those. Okay, you got to stay with me because there's like usual, there's method to my madness here. So that's going to download, and then
I'm there with you. We're all here with you.
Okay, thanks for staying with me, folks. Thanks.
And Aaron says it's Endor-ish. So.
Well, that's good enough. I think that's good enough for me. So we'll go with that. So if I go under date modified, that's going to tell me. Sometimes it's hard to tell with Megascans when you download them what they are. It doesn't say beech tree, and this one does say nature tree. So this is kind of fun because I get to share, for those of you who haven't used this process, Megascans come in as FBXs. So an FBX is not something that SketchUp typically deals with natively. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to open this up. it's asking me, first of all, what level of detail that you want. So the level of detail is the amount of polygons in it. Now, each of these are pretty low detail, and the reason why is because the materials do the heavy lifting. The materials, if you look at the materials, you can see that albedo texture, which is the diffuse map. That's 38 megabytes. The displacement is 164. The materials are doing most of the work. So what we're going to do is just grab the highest level of detail, drag that right into transmuter. I have to always by default, I wish the up axis knew. I always have to tell the up axis to change. And then from materials, this is pretty fun. All I do is drag this in. I drag albedo to diffuse. I drag normal to normal. I drag, it depends, different models will have different things. I'll drag displacement over to displacement. And I think that's all this one has. Oh, roughness, sometimes I'll put roughness into reflection. And that may or may not be the right thing to do. So you can see all the maps here in transmuter know where to go. So they know how to reconnect. And then I click transmute. It's going to ask me, where do you want to save this? I will save this in this Megascans folder that I've set up. And if I go back here, there's my Megascans folder. And I should have a new one called, let's see here. Let's see, when was the date modified? Okay, there it is. That's the one. So if I open that up, it should, if everything worked, fingers crossed, when you do stuff live streams, you never know. There it is. I've got this tree trunk. A little dark for me, but that's okay. What we're going to do is, I'm just going to close out of that one. And instead, what I'm going to do is just drag and drop that one. That tree trunk there, I'm just going to put that in right here. And it's pretty small. So I'm going to make this, I don't know how big that would be. Actually, you know what? Walkers are pretty big, huh? A chicken walker is pretty big. But these are big. These are
they
like,
may not seem very big in some of those scenes, but standing next to one, they'd probably.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I don't know where my scale figure is. Aaron, when you gave me this model, did you have a scale figure in it? If not, I'm going to grab a new one, and I'm going to grab my good friends, Lily and, Lily's the cat, right? And who is the, Heather. It's Heather and Lily. Okay. I always forget because I remember Stacy was one. So I probably want to have a scale figure in here for right now, and that's just going to tell me, even though these are gigantic trees, it just kind of makes sure it reminds me what scale that we're working here. So that's cool. I'm going to leave that there for now. If I want to, if I'm concerned about polygon count, I could come over here and go extensions, which is Fredo, hide all edges. And then for like the Megascans assets that I bring in that maybe could be higher poly, I could just hide the edges on those because remember the materials are going to be doing most of the work for us today. So I just hide those edges and I don't even have to worry about that. So I'm already all set to go. Let me know if you have any questions about that process. I'm going to do it a couple times because I've got a few assets and I've also got some that I've already made. So I won't have to do this 20 times. I'll just do it a couple times. It's kind of fun actually.
I looked it up real quick and chicken walkers are 30 feet tall.
30 feet tall. Okay, well, so I have this one.
If you want to be as accurate as you can be,
28 foot 3 inches. But if I go to the back of its head, if I measure to the back of its head, 30 foot 10 inches. I think we're close enough. I'm going to say close enough. That's kind of the theme of the day. The theme of the day is going to be close enough. So the other one I did was, which one did I do? Let me go back over to my desktop here, Return of the Jedi, Megascans. The one that I just did was this one. See, I don't know what it's called, VLPN. So what I want to do is grab the other one that is not VLPN, and then we're going to do that process one more time. So if you didn't catch it the first time, hey, we do things more than once around here. Oh, that was the log. That was like a cool snag log. This is going to be sweet. I'm excited. Yeah, I don't know about you all at home, but like this is the kind of stuff where like when you're at night and you're listening to some music, like I've said this before, you just kind of get into like the Zen mode. I don't feel like some people are like, oh, you could use AI to do that and it'll just do it for you. And it's like, I don't want AI to do it for me. Like I'm old enough now. I'm like old curmudgeon enough now that I can say, no, I like to do this. This is part of the fun for me. I think that's all of that. I'm going to transmute that one. I'm going to save it to my Megascans folder again, which should put it right in here. And I should have a new one, and that's called, it almost looks like Wilhelm, huh? WHME. Speaking of Wilhelm, we had a conversation about the Wilhelm scream and how many times that shows up.
Yep, the Wilhelm scream.
Star Wars and in
or infamous, depending on your opinion of it, Wilhelm scream.
The Wilhelm scream, yeah. So there's a cool little snag there. I think that's cool. I don't know what I'm going to do with these, and you've seen the process. So what I'm going to do is just grab a few more that I've used in the past, so that I already have available. So let me just come over here and let me see. What do I have available? I have a fern. So I'm going to drag and drop a fern that I got from Megascans. Again, I don't have to use Megascans. You could use stuff from 3D Warehouse, or you could purchase stuff from libraries. I'm probably going to do some stuff from, I may even use, I have lab work plants. So I might check really quick to see what might work for a lab work plant. If they have anything that looks redwoody or like really tall, almost even a pine tree that's in the background could work. So let's save that. So right now we're just kind of in the asset gathering phase. I know we're half an hour in, but we've got the textures on, we've modeled the textures, or should I say added the textures to the ATST, and now we've got some really high quality assets. I'll do a little test render in just a second of what that looks like. So let's open up.
Tyson chimed in and said, kudos, Eric. Every time you break out the sub-rendering apps, Quixel, Transmuter, Scatter, etc., it feels both overwhelming and awesome. So kudos on knowing all the stuffs. Also, you're looking super hipster today.
Oh, yeah, you like these? Because my AirPod, I was worried about the AirPods causing that sync issue with my mouth. So let me know if we're still okay. So yeah, I'm going to be DJing after this later if you guys want to. If you're in the California Central Coast, you can hit me up. I'm kidding, by the way. That would be cool. I wish I was not kidding. Let me see. I'm looking through. So this is LabWork. So LabWork is a German company. I've met one of the, I don't know if he's the owner or the founder, but Tim. He's a great guy. Tim with 2 M's because he's German. So shout out to Tim and the LabWork team for just doing some really cool stuff. I'm looking for something that could, maybe this mahogany could be it, because I'm looking for something really tall and kind of slender and something that kind of gives a nice canopy. But I also might want to see if I can find something that is reminiscent of, sort of closer to the redwood. Problem is I don't think they have a redwood. They have this Scots pine, which could be good. So I'm going to grab that. I know that's not the right thing, but we're rendering, right? We're being creative. Lastly, I'm going to kind of go through these. I don't think they've got any ferns or anything. That's okay, but I could come back, we could come back later and populate and fill in some gaps if we need to. There's tons of stuff between 3D Warehouse, Megascans, and LabWork. We should be able to have our bases covered. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, I just want to say something that's cool about LabWork. So if you don't know this, let me check my window settings really quick. My shadow settings. I like to make sure that my...
Yeah, we did get a comment. Well, we did get asking you to comment on free versus paid for LabWorks.
Free, they only give you, the plugin is free, right? So you get to use it for free, but then like everything, you buy the plants. And so they give you like 8 or 9, I can't remember, like they call it the freebies. So if you haven't used it, again, I don't work for them, so I'm not saying you have to, or I'm not plugging them. I'm just saying I use it. It works great for me. Go download the free plants, try it if you like it, and then go for it. But you also have to remember that Cosmos, this used to be so difficult. It used to be so difficult to find great plants, being a landscape background. Now I can click on Cosmos, and you can just come over here to, let me clear this metal filter, and you can go to vegetation, and I could scroll down to trees. So Cosmos itself is actually, I didn't even think to check it. Here's a tree right here that I think could be cool. I'm going to pop that in. Again, I don't know that it downloads it first, and then it asks me to put it in. There it is. Okay. So I don't know what's going to work the best until we get in there, but I just want to give myself a few options. I don't want to just have one tree repeated over and over again, but you can see, like in this case, here's a really tall kind of skinny pine. That one, import that one.
So from the comments is saying, don't forget the rattlesnake grass.
Rattlesnake grass. Wait, was that a reference to something, or was it there's something called rattlesnake grass?
I don't know. if it's a deep cut in the Star Wars universe, it's a deeper cut than I'm picking up on. So maybe it's more practical than referential.
Lab work, going just finishing this thought because otherwise my OCD won't let me move past it. Lab work is cool because one plant here, if you don't know this, it actually has 3 varieties: young, middle-aged, and fully grown. So when you grab one plant and put it in, you can look at it, previews each one for you. So you can change, you can see that little preview change, and you can kind of say, okay, is that what I want? Is that the kind of shape that I want? So imagine having this same plant copied a bunch of times. Well, you can give it that variety by saying, no, actually, I want these different versions. And something that was new to lab work plants is that the canopies used to always be green. But now when you switch to something like fall color or winter, like if I switch to winter, now I don't know if it's going to work here because this is This is a not deciduous. It's an evergreen, so you can see the color stains green in wintertime. But if you do if it has fall color or spring flowers, the canopy color, like you can see here, does change in SketchUp to tell you that this is fall color. So when you render it, it's going to render as fall color. I think that's just a really cool feature that they put in, and I think it makes it just a little bit easier to visualize what you're doing in SketchUp. Because remember, it takes, we're going to go on a mental journey, a journey of the imagination. If you've seen Cosmos, the show Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let's see what these look like rendered. I don't know. I've never used these trees. I don't know if this is going to work. We're just going with it. But we've got, I said I was going to do some more modeling and then I was going to render. But actually, to be honest with you, it's really a back and forth. You'll notice that I'll do something and then I kind of have to change it and I'll do something again. Okay, so it's going to play catch up. This is where things...
Studio Art is saying that Podium's library as well, by the way. And then Transom, Chambacus, there really is satellite grass that grows in Marion County. So, there we go.
Oh, okay. So if I take kind of a quick look at these, I'm going to zoom in. It's going to take a little while. These are really heavy, so these might be something that I, again, turn off or something like that. They'll be a little dark, but we can work on that when we get into the render settings and we add our lights and stuff like that. But you can see just how you can see if I just kind of zoom in right here to the trunk. Yeah, you can see quite a bit of detail. So let's stop that there. I think we're just gonna riff. We're riffing. We're going with it. Zoom out, save it. Okay. Now I need to create a path. Now I have these things in my ones that I've used before. So these are not ones that we just downloaded together. But if I go back to my Megascans library and I go downloaded 3D, how am I going to find this? That's going to be the problem. Is that there's these ones that are they're like grounds. They're like forest on the ground. So if you look at this here, let me open this up. This is kind of what I'm talking about. It's not a tree. It's not a texture. It's a scanned part of a ground. And I think this kind of stuff will go a long ways to really help our scene out, like branches and fallen leaves and rocks and gravel and all that stuff. So if I have that as SketchUp, if I've already transmuted it in the past, then it makes sense that I would save that so that work transmuting it is only done once. And there it is. I think if you saw my last Star Wars stream, I don't know how long ago that was, I may have done something similar. That's kind of cool. I already have a dead log, so I'm gonna... Yeah, that one's good. I'm gonna grab that one. I don't need too many because, it's really just kind of more in the foreground. So you just and then the other thing too is you can just copy it and just paste these around. So let's see. Maybe if I have one more at the ready, I will use it, and if not, I won't. Yeah, let's just use it. If we have another one, moss ground. Yeah, let's go with mossy ground. Let's go mossy. I have a bad habit of I don't know if it's a bad habit. I guess it's just the habit of just explaining everything that I'm doing as I'm doing it. So sometimes I just want to go zen. Okay, so I've got my ground stuff. I've got this. Now what we need to do is just figure out, you know what I want to get? It's the last thing I want to get for now, and then we'll add some more stuff towards the end, is I want to get, you can see in this image, there's a boulder right here. So let's just find a boulder from Cosmos, just because I think that'll be easy. So if we go home, and then we go, I don't know if it's rock or boulder. I don't know what will show up. Yeah. Oh, I don't know if I like those ones. I might want a mossy boulder instead.
It would fit the environment.
Yeah. I've got rocks. Problem is that some of these rocks, it's just, I just need a better way at figuring out like quickly what everything is. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I have when you download them, they all show up in their own like little folder, and you don't really know. Like, I don't really know what anything is. I'm looking for like a mossy rock, and I don't know. That one looks good. We could just go with that one. So yeah, good. And I've already transmuted that one. All right, we're gonna call it there because we want to move on. Keep this show interesting. All right. Now that may be too many rocks. That's okay because I can just push it under the surface.
I think it's already pretty interesting, so you're good.
Okay. Thanks. So I'm going to start by giving a texture to this ground. So I'll use a V-Ray texture for now. So if I go, I want to give a texture to this ground. So if I type in, I don't know, what would I find? How would I find ground? Ground. Let's just see what happens and see if I can find something that looks like maybe mulchy, like dried leaves, or like, I don't know, maybe this one? This one could be good. Excuse me. I'm going to import that in, and I'm going to apply it to this ground plane here that I have selected. So I'm just going to say apply to selection. Oh, sometimes I'm going to save. See, no one's. All right, let's see. Sometimes it helps to apply it to a surface. I tend to apply things to the outside of groups, just out of habit. So whether that's right or wrong, most of the time that works okay. Sometimes there's reasons why I don't want to do that. Okay, so let me see if I can edit this and enlarge this texture. And if not, that's okay because I'm gonna just, if it remembers that setting or not. There it goes. Yeah, I'm gonna make that a little bit larger so it doesn't feel like it's so repeating. All right, done with that. So we've got our ground plane texture and we've got our assets. Now let's set a camera, because when I do this, I tend to want to set a camera as early as possible. And the reason why is because, like a stage set, everything is sort of composed around that shot. So there's no reason spending all this time really on something behind you that you'll never see, the audience will never see. So what I want to do is kind of think about, it doesn't really matter where it is. I think I just will set one. I already set one. I want to do eye level, so I'm going to look around and say 6 feet, and then go with camera 2-point perspective, and then set something like rule of thirds. Just set something like that. And then I'm just going to say update, and we're going to call this our render camera. So now I already know that I've got a walker placed. If you just kind of look again, if I'm using this image as a reference, I'm going to kind of create I'm going to do something similar with the composition where you can see the walker behind the other walker's legs, in between them, and then there's like a pathway, and then it's all vegetated, and then you have sort of the bunker on the right, and then everything else is just trees. So we're going to kind of see if we can do something like that. So let me grab a copy of this guy, and I'm going to make this one. I'm going to delete this leg. Aaron's like, what are you doing to my model? Well, I'm going to make that a component, because what I want to do is I want one that's standing. So that way I have, let's see, where is that middle pull tab? I want to make sure I'm grabbing the middle. Okay, is that right? Yeah. Like most of the things we do in SketchUp, today is going to be the day of close enough. Okay, close enough. So we're going to just go back to that render mode, and we're going to turn this one sort of, it looks like it's facing, like it's just come into the shot. So I kind of want to turn it there. It's probably not going to work because it's probably not going to work that well. And I'm going to fake it, right? I love this because you can't really see. So I'm going to kind of just maybe make the legs further apart than they really are. Just because we're having some fun. Oh, I moved my dock. Move back, go back. There you go. Go back, dock.
And we do have comments coming in from Facebook and LinkedIn as well.
Oh, yes.
People
Thank
saying
you, everyone.
hi. We want to say, hi to everybody. We do this every Friday. We do it on several platforms, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. And so, hey to everybody out there on whichever platform you're joining us on.
Yes. Hey, everyone. I don't know if that's what I want, but I'm going to go with that here. So let's take a tree trunk. Yeah, hey everyone, welcome. I'm glad that we have LinkedIn. I did share this, did promote this on my LinkedIn, just to kind of let everybody know that we're going to be here today. And because, this is work related. Sometimes it feels like we're just having fun here, but you have to remember that like this skill set, the skills that we have about communicating, like what we're doing ultimately is we're in the business of communicating, and SketchUp just does such a good job of that. This idea that we in this case it's a story, but it could be, it could be an architectural design. It could be, it could be a personal project. It could be test fitting something, whatever it is. It just does a great job. For me, I love it. I know you've all heard this before, so you don't need to hear me say it, but I'm a visual person, right? If you didn't guess that. So I just love that I can kind of see pretty easily what I'm doing. Well, I should say very easily what I'm doing. Because when I'm in Blender, or if I look at something like another program like 3D Studio or something, like in wireframe mode, I just don't work. My brain doesn't work in wireframe, My brain sees color. My brain sees shapes and patterns. Now this is kind of fun. Now we can take this, if we just wanted to see the trunk, we could just scale this thing way up. Like we're talking redwood height, right? So I know that these are not redwoods, but if we're kind of treating them like redwoods, we may want to just really kind of exaggerate the scale of some of these things. And that's okay. I mean, we're in this almost like, it's Endor anyway, so who says it has to be realistic? Now this is going to be kind of fun here. I know I made this big circle, but if you think about it, my camera shows up here. I had this idea. I was helping someone on the forum the other day, and they were talking about gravel. And they're like, oh, it's too much gravel. It's crashing my machine. It just can't process that much. And I said, well, what you can do is you can come over here to camera. You can come over to, tools, advanced camera tools, and you can create a camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a camera. And it's going to ask me, it's going to create a new scene. That's this camera's scene. And then from here, I could come over here and say tools, advanced camera tools. I want to show the camera volume. And then when I switch back to this scene, if this worked, what you're going to see is that's where it keeps moving. This is where I forget. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, that's my camera. Maybe I have to add a scene. Okay, I forget. So that's that camera. Let's try this again. I'm going to try this again. I forget why it doesn't do this. Camera, advanced camera tools. I keep going to camera. Advanced camera, create a camera. And then I want to show, correct me if I'm wrong for those that, if I'm doing it wrong, because I want to show the volume. And then I want to make sure that I'm looking through the camera. So I want to look through this camera. Okay. So the question is how can I rotate and still see that camera? What am I doing wrong? I swear, I've done this. Show the volume. Show the camera volume.
You're out of my wheelhouse.
It's not working. I know it works. I've done it. I just helped somebody with this. Problem is I don't know why it doesn't remember why it keeps the camera active. What it's doing is when I do advanced camera, it's like holding it as if the camera hasn't been set. And it's like, no, the camera's been set. I just set the camera. So what it does, my point that I'm trying to make, and I'm just going to have to fake it. If it doesn't work, I'll try one last time. What I'm trying to do is you can do what's called show the camera lines, and you can do tools, show hide camera volume. And so if I do that again, you can see it kind of showed up and disappeared. Advanced camera tools, show camera volume. Like that right there. I'm just going to try exploding this and see what happens. And then we'll group it. Okay.
So hold on, from YouTube chat, it's an option that enabled the camera in a toolbar.
What was the comment?
It was an option that enabled the camera in a toolbar.
Yeah, so what it's supposed to do is...
Sure, if that helps.
Yeah, anyway, sorry. You get what I'm saying. What it does is, so if I use that camera volume, which is not this is half the time it works, half the time it doesn't. So I shouldn't be demonstrating something until it works every time. But what it does is it shows the camera volume. So it shows exactly what's in the scene. So when I move around and work on different parts of the scene, I don't have to be working in the camera view. I could be working outside of the camera view, and I know exactly what shows up and what doesn't. So that's what I'm saying is, like, if I'm going to start scattering some things, what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to sort of back up a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of fake it. I'm just going to say, you know what? I think this maybe shows, and I think my camera is here, and that maybe shows. So definitely don't need all of that ground plane, but that's okay. So if I go back to my render view, and I just clicked on just that, and I grouped it, copied it, deleted it, pasted it in place. Now, if I backed out, what I'm trying to say is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to scatter some stuff. And in order to do that, it works better. What am I doing? Okay, that I want to delete. There we go. So the point is that, like, when I go to scatter something, you don't want to scatter more stuff than you need. You want to kind of keep it limited to what shows up. So if I look left, you can see my field of view stops left. If I look right, my field of view stops right. That was the manual way to do what I was trying to do with the advanced camera tools, which will actually show the camera volume. So you're not just guessing like I did. It's actually correct. So what I want to do is scatter some stuff. I want to scatter some of these trees around. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of make these trees just, again. Oh, you know what? Here's a little trick. No, I'll do that later. We'll do that later. We'll just scatter some stuff. So scatter is great for rendering. So if you don't know scatter, view, tool palettes, scatter. Scatter is great for landscape, because what it does is it does exactly what it says it does. It's actually by the same developer that made Transmuter, so that what we use to get the Megascan assets in. Speaking of Megascan's assets, I kind of want to place this giant rock formation. Make sure I don't forget about that. I'm just going to kind of have that sticking up somewhere in this foreground. We'll see. I don't know where that goes. Okay, so with scatter, I need to figure out, first of all, what do I want to scatter? And then second of all, I need to also think about what I don't want to scatter, like where I want to avoid things. So we'll come back to that. I'm not ready for that yet. I think what I might do is just place some trees manually, and I'll use scatter for like the small vegetation, like the ferns. The stamp tool, by holding the modifier, for those that don't know that, if you hold the modifier on the move, if you do it twice, you get the stamp tool. And this is great for creating some pretty quick, if you just wanted some pretty quick variety. Like I want to put all these trees in the background, and I can do the same thing, come over here, use that stamp tool, and just stamp a few of these. I'm trying to kind of keep them out of like the middle ground, where the pathway is, because that's where the bunker and stuff is going to go. And so you could use scatter for this, but I found that if you're just going to do a small area, it could be better just to do it like this, because what it does is just gives you a little bit more precise control. Otherwise, you got to go into the scatter settings, and you have to say scatter here, don't scatter here, change this. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Know what I'm putting down?
Yep, up and down.
All right. So the other thing is, now I just copied those. So for those that might be able to pick up that these are sort of slightly, I don't know. I don't want to say like you can see it, but there is a little bit of repetition going on, especially when you look at the way that these little tree trunks are sort of sticking out. So I could select all of these. And I definitely don't want to select my walkers for this. I just want to select the trees. And sort of what I'm going to call the low tech or the low budget, so the poor man's scatter, is going to be called Chris Fulmer. He has scale and rotate randomly. So scale and rotate randomly works really well for vegetation, because you can just click scale and rotate. And I want to say I want to shrink some of them down by like 0.9, and I want to bump some of them up by 1.25. And then I want to rotate some of them Let's scale about the center just to be safe, because I don't know. Sometimes you don't know where the axis is, so I'm going to say scale about the center. Minimum rotation, I want to say at least 30 degrees, and maximum, I want to go 330 degrees. So we leave a little window where maybe they don't run. Click OK. And you can see what happens. If you look right here, it doesn't look all that different, but you're not getting the same canopy direction over and over again. And even then, even though it's subtle, you're starting to see that the heights, vary even just a little bit. So, yeah, that's that. So the one that has the most detail, the Megascan one, I'm going to place in the foreground. I'm also going to place things specifically to block like where my ground plane starts to disappear. So that's an easy one to just pop a trunk in right there. And then I can use the drop extension. So if I see that some of the trees, for some reason when I placed them, are floating, I just go in and use drop. So this guy's over here. I want this big trunk. Like this is like a massive tree, even though this isn't a redwood. If I look at like my reference image, there's this like really big trunk sort of between the two walkers. And then the background walker is kind of almost looks like he's almost like coming out of that. So I don't really want that tree there. I'll just kind of move it into the background. And we're going to have some fog for this, so I'm not too worried about like if you can see the sky and the horizon for the moment. What we need to do is I'm going to have lots of fog and stuff for that. So I'm going to take these rock formations. I don't know if this is the right rock or not, but it is kind of mossy. I thought it's kind of cool. So Donovan, I'm just kind of in my zone. So if there's anything, if people are saying stuff, let me know. We'll hear from our friends.
Not a lot. I do have a question though. Since we're doing a Star Wars project, do you have a favorite Star movie or memory of?
Donovan's doing his Darth Vader impression, his droid impression, by the way. So if anyone is wondering, he's doing that on purpose. Yeah, what are your Star Wars? We're talking about Jedi here. You don't have to stay on Jedi if you're a fan of other ones. But what about Return of the Jedi? Do you have a favorite? What's the favorite? Do you know how to put up polls? Do you want to do polls or no polls? People can just chime in.
Yep, chime in with your favorite Star Wars movie. Although there's TV shows, I guess we could group there as well. TV shows quickly.
Yeah.
From the YouTube, I saw a video that used AI Perl script that changed the dimensions of selected.
Pro tip, if you're going to go into X-ray mode, you may want to turn off your materials because it just doesn't have to process the transparency on so many things. I did not do that. You can see that it kind of paused for just a second. Yeah. So 0.97, 0.98. Yeah, AI is interesting. Like, if you really wanted to get into it, which I don't want to right now, but you could be like, why? Pretty soon, Eric, you won't have to do these live streams at all. AI will do all of it. They'll narrate it. They'll have some avatar that shows up, probably much better looking than me, and probably funnier. And we'll get to the end result way faster, right? But to me, that's not the point. The point to me is getting lost a little bit in the weeds and the fun that is this conversation that we're having. So, what do we want to do now? I've got this log here. Where should I place this log? I'm just composing the shot. So for those that find like moving objects not as interesting as actually modeling things, I'm sorry, but I really enjoy just like, it's good practice, right? Using the rotate, using reference, scaling, mirroring, right? So we're using all these basic best practice tools over and over and over again, copying, placing, pasting in place, dropping, flipping, mirroring, all that stuff. So for me, it's just a good sort of a reminder that, I kind of enjoy this part of the process where I just kind of get to place things like that. Little ferny ferns. Okay. I don't know if that's the right palm to use. Sometimes what I'll do too is I'll take a palm and I'll like sink it into the ground. So I'll just move it on the vertical axis and I'll just kind of shrink it. So I'm using the same asset, but by just kind of pushing it down into the ground, it sort of acts differently, right? So if I look at this, if I look at this reference image, you can see that there's some ferns in the foreground and there's some palm fronds just kind of sticking in from outside of the camera angle. And so it's kind of cool because you can use just this one asset. And by flipping it and scaling it, mirroring it and pushing it down and pulling it up, you can get a lot of variety for it. So again, just using these sort of common tools. So that's kind of what we're doing today. We're going into my Zen. I'm going into my Yoda mode. Going into Yoda mode. So we need to do here. I don't know whether I want to test render at this point or if I want to just wait and just do. I almost feel like I just want to wait and then do the bunker. Because I want to do the bunker and I need to put some stormtroopers in, and then we're just going to light this thing. We're going to light it and we're going to put some fog and we're going to do some camera effects and we're going to scatter. We're going to look at the test render and we're going to look at where vegetation sort of needs to come and where it doesn't.
Yeah, it'll be the big one.
What's that? Okay.
I said the reveal at the end.
Yeah, the big reveal at the end. Okay, so maybe I won't do like too many test renders, like because the other thing too is it takes a while. So what I'll do is we'll just kind of leave it. We'll just kind of hope that this is where we're going. I mean, if you put them up side by side here, you can see that we're getting there, right? I hope. So the other thing too is I'm going to cheat, and I'm kind of going to give the impression that this leg can turn like a person's leg. Do you know what I mean? Like it's actually pointing, like he can point his feet out and pivot. I don't know if the walkers pivot or not, but I think that actually looks cooler. So I'm going to go like 30 degrees, maybe 40 degrees. No, that's too much. Maybe 35 degrees. Yeah, that looks better. So it's like his legs are like spreading, like as he sort of adjusts his footing. I think there was a scene. Wasn't there a scene where he kind of like gets hit in the head and he kind of wobbles like a person would? I can't remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
When they're being attacked by the Ewoks.
Yeah, exactly. And he kind of like trips, on himself a little bit, or almost like falls over and like staggers. I think that's kind of funny. That's like it's so funny. Like again, you would embody this giant robotic machine that would never move like that with like these human characteristics. Like it gets hit in the head and it gets off balance. That would never happen that way. But we relate to it better. Do you know what I mean? I think it made for a better scene. Of course, it was unrealistic. That's why I'm like not when like AI, like would AI do that? Like is AI there yet where it knows to do that, or is it going to treat it like a robot all stiff and realistic? I don't know. All right, moving right along. We're going to do the bunker. We're going to move over to some architecture.
Vacation chimed up and using the ATST is far away in the reference image, I think.
The ATST is where in the reference image? It's facing the wrong way.
He says facing the wrong way.
You think so? Did I get that wrong? That would be a big boo-boo. You might be right. It's really difficult to tell. I think you're right because I think they're all coming towards the camera. So I think what I did was I couldn't tell because this looks like its heel, but I think that's its toe because of the way that the leg bends backwards. So that was a good observation. This is why we have people. This is why we have smarter people than me in the chat. So sometimes I like to do is come over here and if I open up my styles panel and I create a style and I will create a scene and I will call this working. And the reason why I do this is because and then under scenes, window scenes, I wish they wouldn't generate thumbnails by default. I usually sing SketchUp's praises, but there's a few things like that I don't understand. Why are scene animations on by default in SketchUp when they shouldn't be? Why do you enable scene thumbnails on by default when it shouldn't be? Those are things that you should allow me to turn on. So, end of rant. Camera location. I'll disable that for working, and the reason why is because I'll have a render scene like that has all my textures and it has all my high poly stuff and it has everything. You can see what's happening right now. It just took a second to process all of that. So when I click to working and then I pan around, you can see that I can get around a very heavy render ready model very quickly because I'm doing it in like a working, like in this case, if I wanted to turn something off, like if I wanted to hide some of these objects or something, I just hide those and save it to a working scene. And so that way it's just very fast. Like I don't navigate with everything turned on with all my textures and all my shadows and all that stuff. I navigate in my working scene, and all that stuff only sits on the render scene. So hopefully that's helpful for some people. So speaking of which, before we go to the bunker, let's go ahead and turn this bad boy around. I'm just gonna go -1, and then we're gonna check our, speaking of render, we're gonna pop back to our render scene. See, I'm going to wait for it for a second. It's okay. And we're going to come over here, and I'm going to try and figure out where that foot placement may be. If I open up this reference image, he looks like he's kind of facing, maybe it's just the wide angleness of it. Looks like it's kind of, I think it's probably about there. I almost don't want to show too much of it because you can see that you know, this material that I put on it is not going to hold up. It's not going to hold up in court. But we're going to put some leaves and stuff like that in there. So we'll figure that out. Yeah. Also, sometimes if you're having trouble moving something, sometimes I'll make a copy of it. I found, like, watch what happens if I go to move something here. Sometimes it doesn't want to place where I want it to. It just kind of let me try moving it. Sometimes it gives me a little bit of, not trouble, but it kind of doesn't want to like follow my cursor exactly. And so sometimes I find if I hold the Alt or the modifier option or control, then what I can do is if the movement feels smoother. I don't know what it is, but it feels easier for me to move a copy and place a copy than it is the original. So sometimes what I'll do is do that, and then I know that's an extra step, and I'll just delete the original, and then I'll go from there. So I want some leaves up here, but that's okay. We're going to do some cropping and stuff. All right, so the bunker. I got some reference images because, again, I had to do a little bit of planning because otherwise you would just see me like in searching Google this whole time. And I thought this was kind of funny because this reminds me of my childhood, and it's the Star Wars. I think it's the Star Wars, like probably a Hasbro set. So I thought, like, well, this actually shows the bunker the best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And pro tip, if you're going to model something that then you're going to add to a render scene, my suggestion is to model it in a new blank one here. So, and then pop it when you're ready, pop it in. So if I go to Styles, Display Watermarks, add a watermark, and let's go to Show Sidebar. And desktop, turn the Jedi, and reference images, and let's see if this works. This may or may not work, but we'll give it a shot. I'm doing this as a watermark instead of match photo, just because match photo is going to give me, it's just going to kind of, it's just a little bit more, I don't want to say complex setup, but it just sort of like, it gives you more tools that for something simple like this. I don't know that it really helps me. So I'm just going to come over here and just kind of align. I'm just going to scale Heather and Lily to kind of match. I want her eye level. I want the horizon at her eye level. And I want her just sort of slightly smaller than the dude with the beard. And the axes, I just want the red axis to sort of somewhat be parallel. I think that's enough for me. I don't know. We'll see. Save that to a scene and start drawing. So this is kind of like, again, this is kind of like a crappy version of doing it with match photo. So if I put on my X-ray mode here, then I can just kind of see pretty quickly. I can just say that needs to go up, and I'm doing this pretty fast and loose because I don't want. I mean, I could spend quite a while just doing this. So what I may want to do is copy this. There's like this little like reveal. I don't know what you call this, like this little part that pops out. I may want to take that and treat it independently and group that, because then I can scale it, and I can scale it about the midpoint. And then see if Fredo Tools has Fredo Scale, which has box tapering. It may make sense that I just that I go ahead and model this as if I'm just looking straight at it. And speaking of which, I'm going to see if I can bring the image up a little higher. Just because I'm using X-ray, I'm modeling in front of it instead of it in front of my model, right? So you can do it two ways. You can put a watermark in front, or you can put a watermark behind. In this case, I'm going to keep it behind, and then so that's why I want to bump that.
Also, speaking of which, don't forget to save.
Don't forget to save. The other thing I'm going to do right now, yes, I'm going to save this desktop. I'm just going to call this bunker. All right, and then the next thing I want to do is sort of intersect this with model. I don't know if that's going to work.
From YouTube comments, you got one, Eric Thomas here from Lindley.
Oh, is that Thomas is from Lindale. Yeah, he's the scatter. He's one of the Merwin and Thomas.
He says, go ahead.
Oh, no, they're from scatter, so that's cool. I'd be curious to see what they're up to.
He said, I made an almost identical image 8 years ago on the first beta version of Scatter to showcase its capabilities.
You know what?
This brings back...
I remember that, and in my head, I was thinking like, okay, he's going to think I'm just ripping this off, but like in a way, it was like, no, this is about Aaron's ATST. This is about Jedi's 40th anniversary. This is May the 4th. Like the stars are aligning on this, and it's funny that... That's actually funny that he brought that up because you can find it. I don't know if it's still available, but he used this image of where you can scatter the ferns and you can scatter and it's like a GIF and it kind of builds up and that's actually was one of the most amazing things that I had ever seen. You know, when I first saw that, because I'd never seen anything like that. Because vegetation has always been a little bit of a thorn in my side anyway. All right, so I'm gonna do this here. I made it as a component. So what I do to one side should do it to the other. So I push this in. I am not, by the way, like, oh wait, how do okay, I can box taper the whole thing. So if I box taper the whole thing, I probably want to go back and do this as a straight line because I'm gonna see if box tapering works. In fact, I may want to do a quick test. So for those who don't know, so welcome, Thomas. Great to see you. In fact, I'm hoping to meet Thomas in person in Sweden at the end of this month. There's going to be a little developer meetup that I would like to be a part of. I'm not a developer, but there's so much to learn from these guys and gals, like Enroth. I mean, just such talent, such awesomeness that they make these extensions. Some of them paid. Obviously, they need to earn a living, but most of them free. I just love it. It's a great community. So let's see. I'm going to do a quick test. And if I come over here to Tools, Fredo Scale, Box Tapering, and I don't know if this is going to work or not. So what I want to do is taper this whole thing. That's not tapering. So how do I taper? If everyone's in the chat, this is why I plan stuff, by the way. Oh, good. This is why I pre-plan stuff, because then that way you don't have to watch me figure it out on the fly. You get to just watch me model and do it, not have to be like get stuck on it. And it's funny because we do learn things. We do learn things when we get stuck and when something goes wrong. So in a way, that's good. But I don't really like to learn in real time. Like I like to learn in my own time and then I come back and then do it. You know what I mean? Like I like to fail by myself.
That's a good way to describe it. Failing by myself.
All right. I'm not going to do that anymore. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this instead. I want to see if this works instead. I want to just take this whole thing. Maybe I don't need a box taper. Maybe it's just something as simple as just pulling that in, getting that in, and then coming in here and just pulling that in, right? Just kind of, again, we're just guessing at this point. We just need something. All right. And this looks a little high, so I could take, because I moved it, the push-pull tool might not work, so I may have to just use the move tool instead. It's kind of cool because in a way, the move tool and the push pull tool kind of do the same thing. All right, so what do you think? We need to do these little panels here, this little reveal. So that's easy. I think that's just going to be an offset. So I'm just going to offset that, push that back in, and then I'm going to offset that again, and then offset just to give that sort of. Oh, you know, if it's distracting, I could set up a window style, and I could just create one where I turn watermarks off, and then I add a new one, and then I come over here to scene 1, and then I say change the style to no watermark, and then update that, add a new one. So what's cool about that is, I said add, right, not update.
Don Cote of YouTube comments says
There.
to learn that too. Chime back and says it's fun to struggle, way back struggler.
Well, so here's what we need to do is I need to figure out how many of these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. And I know that they're not exact, so I'm probably going to just put like 3 of them because at this point I made the proportions are off. So what I need to do is figure out what's the spacing for these. So I need to build one of them. This is actually a technique that I have a campus course that's going to be coming out soon, where I teach how to model a building, an existing building, from just photos like I'm doing now. And it's a lot of like counting things like, how many spaces is this? How tall is this? How do we work backwards? So you end up using the divide tool quite a bit. So if I come over here and I just say, there's that. And then what I need to do is there's where it stops. And then now I need to figure out how many of those fit equally. So I would just come over here and say, well, if I want divided by 4, that's the spacing that I get. Divided by 3, that's the spacing I get. Divided by 5, ooh, that's pretty tight. I don't really like that. I think 4 was probably the best spacing. And I'll just kind of push that in again. I know it has rounded corners, but and I could round those corners, but I'm flying pretty fast and loose. Okay, so what do we need? We need sort of, we need to do the same thing on the side. So if I did this, if I was smart, I would just, I would have done this. Let's see, I'm just going to have to kind of figure out what's a good way to take this view axis. What's a good way that I can take the same module and apply it over here? The only thing I can think of is just to come over here and just trace a line over, because it's not the same proportion. So then what I could do is basically, oops, I could just offset this face and then just snap it to right about there. So I know that that lines up. I'm just kind of using that reference line. And then if I want to do the same thing, I just kind of pull that here, and I just kind of pull that here. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then what I would do is, and that would tell me kind of generally, if I drew a line over where that offset would be, the next one's much smaller, so that's easy. In fact, I don't even want to do that yet because I want to push this in just a little bit. And then I want to offset to about here, and then here. I want to push that in. How did I do it on this one? I didn't do it on that one. I pushed that one in. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to draw this line here, and then that tells me where that offset generally is. And if you can't see what I'm doing, it's basically if you draw that, that little intersection point, that's just telling me when I offset this face, basically snap it to right there. So I'm just drawing these sort of temporary reference lines that I'm pulling from the side, because otherwise I'm like, how else would I do this? I'm totally open. I'm totally open to new ideas. So in this case, I do the same thing. I need one of these modules.
Ransom said you to group and move it. And then Antonio says, are those 90 degrees or are those corner pieces 45?
I'm not sure which corner pieces, because there's a lot of corner pieces. All right. Well, I'm also working at an angle now because I already tapered. So that right there, I'm just going with that because I just want to do this quick because it's kind of in the background anyway. It's kind of covered. I just need something that generally sort of feels like it fits the shape. So I pop that in a little bit. And also I need something that has a little bit of detail, because if it's just line work, then it's not going to render well. So you want to definitely have enough some detail on it so that when you go to render, you're getting shadows and things like that. So let's go to our watermark view. And if I turn this off, you can see there, that's what it looks like. And then if I turn this on, I think this part here, and I don't know if I can do it now. It's probably too late. I should have done it before. But I think this is actually at an angle. So this is where I would use like the box tapering or something like that, or Fredo scale. I'm just going to go with it. I've got some plants on there. It looks like there's something that looks like to be maybe some sort of radar dish. And I'm going to use Tyson's technique. Tyson taught me early on in my career that if you're going to do follow me, like if you have a really sort of specific shape you want to do for follow me, you may want to draw like a plane first, because otherwise it's really difficult. It can be difficult to see what it is. You know, you could be actually drawing the profile of the follow me onto something that, you know, you didn't want to do. So in this case, I might just draw like a little reference plane first. And there we go. Bob's your uncle. Okay, so that's some sort of antenna on it. And then lastly, I think that there's these little, and I'll be done after this. I think that there are these little, just these little boxes. If you look at them, they look like just these little, there's like 1, 2, 3 in the middle, and then there's 1, 2 on the sides. And so I'm just going to put those little, whatever those little boxes are. This one actually might be one where I want to just round the corners off on this one. So here's how I would do that. I would come in here and without an extension, I would just divide this whole thing in half and then in half again. So I'm only doing it once. And then I would just take this and go like that and go 360 divided by 3. Nope. Divided by 4. Nope, that's not how I wanted to do it. I would have to do this instead. I would scale it. -1. Whoa, what did I do? Sometimes it helps to work off to the side. I think about Tyson's boneyard, you know, that he likes to use. And as much as like we give him a hard time for it, like it makes sense that like you're just, you know, work off to the side. And then when you're ready, you bring it back in. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to make that a component just because there's more than one of them. Always, always, always. If there's more than one of it, I make it a component. I don't even know what this thing is supposed to look like. It's got Tyson also, to give him some, to plug him, he's also really helped me early on in my transition from, I want to say, I don't know, working on my own projects to really thinking about SketchUp, you know, how SketchUp works, and looking at like inferencing, you know, and the power of inferencing, and like making sure I'm using that correctly. Tyson's the inference master.
Tyson did comment, padowan is now the master.
Yep. So this is kind of an interesting technique here. You could leave, instead of pushing these all in, I could just push this whole thing in, and then those stick out, just to give it like almost like greebles, you know, just to give it some level of detail. So bunker, that might be too big. I model in white. I know that some of you, I don't know if some of you like the all white. It's because I model an all white screen because like oftentimes if it has color, let's just pretend like I've got a color applied to it. If you have a background color and you switch to monochrome mode, which is hidden line style, it picks up that background color. So whenever I switch to monochrome, I like to see it white. So that's why like I actually don't mind having a background color. It's just that I'm often going into monochrome mode, so that's why I just end up sticking with white. So I think there's maybe 2 of them over on this side. I'm going to use, again, using inferencing. Maybe make that a foot away. Nope. Maybe 4 inches away. Nope. 8 inches away. I don't know. We're going to grab that because it's a component. all I have to do, if I want to do that, I'm just going to line up this middle one here with itself. And I'm going to say, I'm going to be okay the fact that those two overlap just a little bit. I'm going to say that's good. That's fine. Just overlap those and then bing. So now you've got that middle one because it's two components. So I only had to do it once. Okay. I'm not too worried about the door because, to be honest with you, I just don't know that you're going to see it. I think it's going to be in the shadow. Or if anything, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure you don't see it. Because you know what? I'm in charge. I get to do it however I want to do it.
Yep, you do you.
I'm going to do me. I'm going to do me today, everybody. No, that's actually not true. I don't like to just do me. I'm the kind of person who, I got into this role teaching and training because I just really enjoy the feedback loop that you get with when you work with people, when you work with other people. Like, yeah, I could just do this by myself if I wanted to. Okay, what do you think? Are you willing to call? Are you happy, Donovan? As long as Donovan's happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm good. Your screen actually froze for me, so I'm going off of the audio and just listening to you work. So.
Oh, let me check real quick. Hang on one second, everybody. It shows that
you're fine. It looks like I think it's just on my end. So.
Well, hey, if you got to pop out and pop back on, then do that because I can carry on without you for a few minutes. I'll miss you, but we'll survive. Okay, so there's only one of these, but out of habit, I'm going to make it a component. That one's done. I need to come over here and I need to get back into my main model. I need to get back into it because we're already at 12:27, and like Eric, you're not going to be able to render this. You're not going to be able to. So at this point, I'm going to throw some stormtroopers in. I'm going to throw some fog in. I'm going to throw some lights in. We've got 30 minutes. We're going to do it. We're going to probably go. I'm going to say this. I learned this term leak. That's like when a meeting, like a Zoom call, goes over. We might leak a little bit, but not too much because I know we're all busy. We're all busy people. We got things to do. Okay, so let's get that bunker in there. Let's get those stormtroopers in there. And so we can move on. I want to do that. Nope, I want to do blue axis. I thought I hit inferencing. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes I hit the arrow key and it should lock to the blue. So I'm going to do 180. This bunker feels small. I'm probably going to push the size of it up. If you look at our reference image, not that one, this one, you can see that, you can kind of see it again. I don't know why I put all that detail into those doors. You may not, if I do it, if I'm faithfully reproducing this, I'm going to block it. But I wasn't trying to faithfully reproduce this image. I was just inspired by this. So I don't know where that bunker is going to go, but it feels a whole lot bigger than that. I'm going to move that over. So this is the part where it's like, this is the part where I kind of think about this as like, when I think about rendering, I kind of think about it a little bit like the hockey stick curve. Do you know what I mean? Like the hockey stick, you can look at it, it's like exponential growth. If you lay a hockey stick flat with the curved part where you hit the puck on the right, it's like barely sloping at all or not sloping. And then all of a sudden, it skyrockets, right? As it curves, it goes straight up, almost straight up. And I think that's kind of like with rendering. You're like, it's kind of slow, 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 slow. And then towards the end, like everything starts to come together. So that's why I'm not too concerned because hopefully everything comes together. So we need a concrete texture for this. I need kind of a maybe metal for the doors. So that iron that I had earlier, I think may come in handy. So let's come over to Cosmos. If I can get Cosmos to behave. Sometimes Cosmos is silly for me. It opens up multiple windows. I don't know if that's just for me or if other people see that. So I want to type in concrete and see what comes up. Lots of concrete. Definitely want something weathered. Let's go with that. Download it first, import it into my model, and then from there I should be able to, remember I pre-select the thing that I want to apply it to. Sometimes it helps, extension removed from selection. So even if I have a material applied to that or I got it from 3D Warehouse, I just remove that first by default. And then I come over here to the asset editor and apply to selection. And there it is. Bam. Okay, so now let's grab that metal that I showed earlier for that iron metal texture. I think that was something that I wanted to If I go back to, I don't know, my reference images, I'm not sure if I can see it. This is actually from the film. When they've sort of captured everybody. Kind of a sad part, huh? This is funny. I was looking at some reference images. This is the model makers doing the stop motion. How much fun would that have been? The stop motion people are people who do stop motion are kind of interesting people. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, it's not really concrete. It could be metal. I'm going to go with concrete. I'm just going to make the door metal. And I'll make these little panels, these little interior panels metal. And then I'm going to say that's good enough for what we're doing. So let's see. We need that iron, that iron again. I think that was a good one. So I'm going to type in iron. Import dirty iron. And we're going to come in here. Might switch to my working scene, just if it speeds things up. I want to select this, 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 and that. And then I'm going to apply iron to it. Not that one. Did it not import? See, sometimes, you know, when you do this enough times, you kind of know what to look out for. You know what I mean? Like when something doesn't do what it's supposed to do. I always tell people, like, yeah, if it's not doing something you're supposed to do, it could be that, yeah, it's probably that you did something. You're just doing something wrong. So this looks like a huge mess right now. It's like, you know, if I said, hey, this is my model, this is my Star Wars scene, people are like, I don't believe you. But I have 30 minutes to convince you, okay, that we can do this. Let's add some stormtroopers. Donovan, if you popped off, that's fine. But if you're back in with us, that's good to know too.
Yep. I'm just saying, if you can hear me, I believe in you.
I can hear you. Yeah, you were quiet for a little bit. I didn't know if you had to pop off to fix the screen issue, the screen sharing. So while I open that up, I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, these are the guys that I told you I found. I don't know which ones of these are going to work. I think that probably just the ones that are kind of standing and marching. The ones that are sitting may not work. I don't know what that guy's doing. He looks like he has to go to the bathroom, but I'm not quite sure. Because these guys are shooting at each other, and ultimately, I don't know that actually a battle is happening in this scene. I think maybe they're just walking. So at this point, yeah, I won't need Heather and Lily much longer because they were my scale fake. They were for scale, especially when I was trying to get a sense of like how big some of these plants might be. So we got a couple more things I want to do before I get into V-Ray. I want to place some of these. I don't have to place all of them. We can always come back and spend some time on this later. If we get close, if we can get really close enough, that's always good enough for me. But what we could do is we're going to place some of these stormtroopers, at least figure out, you know, generally, you know, where they go. And then I want to do some vegetation, get some more. Maybe this time I can use scatter now that I have a better idea of where I want to scatter some stuff to. Just scatter some ferns on the ground, you know, so there's some palms and ferns. I don't know why this is taking so long. I know those stormtroopers could be a bit detailed because they've got some texture maps and stuff applied to them. And they come from 3D Warehouse. So while I'm waiting for these to pop in, it's always a great tip for 3D Warehouse. Love 3D Warehouse. Use it all the time, as I'm sure all of you do out there. But it can be tricky because you have to really vet stuff. You have to spend some time. You have to open stuff up. You have to check it to see if it's, you know, how big the files are. Stormtroopers that I have here that I found, my consolidated list was 22.7 megabytes. I don't know as far as like for people if that's a lot or not. I could, while that's going, I could use this opportunity instead of just sitting here is actually take something like this, go back and look at my little forest setup here, my little forest scene. Oh, that would have been a good rock. That probably would have been better than the one I hit. And see if there's anything that I feel like I really need, especially when it comes to plant material. I like these stumps. And I actually think I already have one of these stumps. So while we're waiting, I'm going to see if I can find a tree stump. Just so, tree stump. Here we go. Oh, that's kind of cool. It's like broken off. That one could work. Okay. Donovan, is the chat still going? Just sort of want to make sure that's still working okay because I didn't see it.
Yeah, people are chiming in saying that my audio is good. So,
oh, okay.
Thanks for the feedback.
Great. Okay. So let me. So I don't really want to download anything new and go back to Transmuter. Let me see if I can place these here. Oh, you know what I should have done? I didn't take my own advice, folks. When you're moving assets and you're importing things and exporting things, like it's a good idea to set up, like I set up this fast working scene. And the reason why is because it's a lot quicker because I can turn off anything I don't want to see, or I can turn off like the really high res textures. Like Megascans has these huge, textures, so my file is going to be quite large. So what I'm going to do is let me grab that tree stump since I did do that segue while I was waiting for all of those stormtroopers to come in. Let me just grab that tree stump here. I love the drag and drop. I don't know what version of SketchUp that was, by the way. You used to actually have to go to File, Import, and you had to select which file type you're importing. You actually had to pick it, or else it would say it wouldn't show up. And now all you do is just drag and drop it into the SketchUp window, which I just think is fantastic. Extensions, hide the edges. Remember, just out of default, like out of good habits, if you want to just kind of lighten the load, just use this is Fredo's. This is Fredo's tool, so that means you can't find it on 3D Warehouse, so hide edges is going to be on SketchUcation. So like, for example, like for these guys here, if I want to just come over here and just say hide edges, I can make a shortcut for that too, so you can turn them on and off. It's a really, really fast way to do that, and it helps keep the model just light and nimble. Come over here, extension, hide edges. So, yeah, I'm excited. I haven't done this. Normally I test render constantly. But we haven't test rendered anything. I'm just waiting until like I can place some people and place some ferns, and then we're gonna let the rendering do the rest of the work. Okay, so let's go back. Let's come over here, and I don't know where I want to place this tree stump, but I kind of also want to cover up. I don't know. I'm gonna place one here for now, and I might place one just in the background. Maybe they had to clear some trees in order to build this sort of bunker area. Maybe he's like stepping over one. I don't know. If you like Bob Ross, I like watching him paint because it's like, put some little happy trees over here.
There have a couple of people comments comparing me to
Bob Ross.
Teaching.
Yeah, that's a compliment. Thanks. So I'm just going to put some stormtroopers in here. And the guy in the lead he's maybe... All right, Heather Lily, your time has come. Thank you so much for your service. You may go. You may be dismissed. I'm going to take the guys that look like they're in more of the action pose. So I don't know, from that reference image, the scout troopers, these are the scout troopers. You can see that, they're also the speeder bikers. So whether you call them speeder bikers or scout troopers, I'm going to put them up on the bunker because they were like, I don't know. He's a little stiff. I would like to spend some more time with posing, but the problem is that it's really difficult to pose people that you didn't make yourself, because it does take, like Aaron was nice enough to give me some joints, in his, like this guy just looks like, you can see his pose just looks really stiff. So maybe I didn't even want to put him there. He looks too stiff. He's probably more likely guarding the entrance to the base. Because that's more like a guard pose, whereas this guy's in like a scout pose. So I would say he's more like on the front line, looking, making sure that it's clear to move forward. So, in fact, I could actually, if I wanted to like keep things moving really quick here, I could just group all of, my Megascans stuff. You notice I haven't worked with tags lately at all on this. So that's something that I normally do, which is I come over here and I call this S Megascans, and then I come over here to entity info. I do just have a conversation with myself when I do this. Now I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then, oh yeah, this would be cool if I did that. It's strange not hearing like the audience. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're teaching, like you get, there's people that raise hands and ask questions and stuff. So here, when we do these live streams, like we don't get, we don't get to actually like hear them.
Which I guess is part and parcel of what co-hosts are here to kind of have audience.
That's right. You represent. You represent our audience, Donovan. So you have an important role here. Here's the problem with these guys is that of all the stormtroopers from that other model, from this one, I don't know. I would love to like put more in, but man, I don't know. Maybe I will put one more in. Because I don't know, it's going to be pretty light. Like you can see that in that reference image that I found, like they had, I don't know, 50 or 60 or something like that. Yeah, this guy looks, okay, so if we go back to our render view, let's go back to our render view and see how this is starting to shape out. Is it feeling Jedi? Are we getting there? I know we haven't rendered it yet, but are we starting to feel, like, does it feel feel Jedi-esque? Okay, this tree stump here, now that I'm looking at it back in that camera angle, just pushes back so that the bunker, that guy's cool. This guy's cool. I don't like that hand coming up. Do you think I would be able to? I might just have to get rid of him. I just might have to turn him up. Maybe I'll turn him. Maybe I'm going to ignore it at this point. This is kind of where it's like, when I get late into the stream, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, okay, this is not how exactly how I want it, but I'm going to go ahead and let this one go for right now because of the time. This always happens. I'm going to stamp some of these guys around using the stamp, and then I want to scatter some ferns. And then, you know, this is where you can use the flip tool. And I just want to flip some on the green, flip them on the red. Where did he go? If that doesn't work, you can always use the tried and true scale by -1. Totally fine. All right, so we're going to do this. I'm going to create a tag for my trees because I want to scatter some ferns. So let's do that, and then we're going to render because we don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to go window tags, and I'm going to go S trees, and then that way I can just I could just go ahead and grab all of these. I don't need any of these things on for right now. I'm just going to go ahead and pop them onto their own tag. This was a lot to do, to be honest with you, because we started with the walker and with the talking about the materials and where we started with the ATST, and we moved into gathering assets, which takes a while, importing assets, making sure texture maps are correct, and then building the base stage, right? So I mean, we're trying to do an awful lot, to be honest, in 2 hours. I'm going to put him up here so he's not alone because he looks like he's also scouting. All right, here's what I want to do. So if Thomas is still with me, that's great. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to scatter just this one fern. So if I turn my Megascans assets on, I have just this one fern here. So I'm actually going to take that off of the Megascans tag, put it back under untag. So when I turn everything else off. Now with Megascans, it's kind of cool. There's a couple different ways we can do this. Let's see. I could come over here and go into Tool Palettes Artisan first. So Artisan allows me to basically subdivide. I can take this plane. It doesn't really work quite as well when you're working on a triangular plane like this. So what you probably want to do is not that, because that's not going to get us where we want to go. So. Let's go to desktop. It's Friday, folks. I always say that. It's Friday. The weekend's coming. It's trying to say, like, ease into the weekend. Don't push too hard. Just let it happen. Whatever happens, happens, you know. Isn't that Yoda? Do or do not. There's no try. I'm not going to try to worry. I'm not going to worry about it. Just going to let whatever happens happen here.
Yep, that's the reference.
Yeah. All right, I can read the comments
Although
because
honestly,
I have a
you
second
do,
while
I
it's
feel
opening
like
up.
you-
Okay. Is Ahmed here? Hi, Ahmed. Kegi? Transom? Who else am I missing? The usual, what I call the usual suspects. Okay, I'm not going to do it that way.
You got a lot of them. Yeah.
I'm not going to do it the way that I just said I am. I changed my mind because of that little crash. So when you work with when you're working with so many different kinds of assets at different with different levels of poly and stuff like that, this is where things can get tricky because we're really we're pushing things like we're subdividing faces, we're parametrically generating high poly assets, like we're really pushing as far as we can go. Not as far as we can go, we're pushing what we can do in SketchUp. So that's really that kind of uncomfortable zone is where I like to be. But that comes with a little bit of risk, right? Like Tobey Maguire says, with great power comes great responsibility. So that's what we're doing right now, is trying to keep this responsibility from crashing us. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to pop open Scatter, because Scatter has this cool function that again, I was thinking I could create a path first, and then I could say don't scatter everything outside of this path. Or you can, in Scatter, come in here. The first question it's going to ask me, it's going to say, well, what do you want to scatter on? I'm going to scatter these ferns on this host. So all of those red little dots represent where a fern is going to go. So then it's going to say, well, what do you want to scatter? So I just come over here and I pick this fern, and I say, I hide help. I think I know, hopefully I know what I'm doing. So that's the fern. Now the other thing it's going to do, it's going to ask you distribution, it's going to ask you density and all that stuff. I'm okay with all of that. So what I want to do is, if I wanted to generate these in the model, which you have to be careful because it could be kind of intense to generate that many. So I may want to bring the density down maybe just a little bit, something like 0.45. No, maybe even more. Or should I say less? Something like 2.5. Yeah, let's try that. So what you could do is you could pick this asset here, that one, and it's going to preview them like that. So it's going to show you how many there are. That's a lot. So if I click generate, and if this doesn't crash, I'm going to save this first. Save. If I click generate, it's going to actually generate all of these in the model. So this may or may not work because there's a lot of them. It did work, so that's good. So all of those are actually physically in the model now. Now that's cool because you can see it now, but once you have everything the way you want, if it is processor intensive, you couldn't just say render only. So I could just change it to render only and say, I only want to see it when I render. Once I know what it looks like, I'm okay. So in this case, I do want to make sure that there's this thing called a mask, and it's going to be a paintbrush mask. And so what I'm doing is I want to paint what's called, I want to exclude an area. So in here, and I haven't used, to be honest with you, and if Thomas is listening, sorry, like I used Scatter version 1 a lot, and I really haven't in a long time used it. So when you switch to Scatter 2, I never really had the time to like learn the sort of little differences in the UI. I know it's generally the same, but there are some different parameters. So like in this case, what you can do is paint, and I want to say, I don't remember. I want to do a paint mask, and I don't remember. I want to make it to exclude. So I think by default it excludes. So if Thomas is on there, you can tell me if I'm right. What I want to do is paint what I think is going to be the path that I want to follow. So you can see, you should be able to change the brush size, but I'm just going to go with it right now because we're running out of time. But you can see that I'm just painting this here, and if I'm right, then anything within this zone that I'm painting, there won't be any ferns. Now it looks like it did the opposite though. So that was the inclusion. So that was including that mask. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do the opposite for sake of time. I'm going to come in here and just grab some of these and just take them out. Let's see if we can create what looks like, an opening in the field. There they are. Go back to render setup. We're at 10 minutes till, and I haven't even rendered anything. So folks, we don't like to do two parts for these. We don't like to do them in two parts because we find that composition is modified since the last time it was generated. Do you want to generate it now? Yes. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, we don't like to do these in two parts because the reason why is we tend to lose people when we tell them that, like, oh, this is part one and part two. Not everybody comes back for part two, and that's okay. We don't blame them. That's fine. Oh, it stored, it remembered my setup. So somehow I need to get rid of the paint. I want to get rid of the paint, and I want to go in and regenerate it. It remembered that paint boundary. And so you can see what it did is it inverted it. So now all of those came back. Well, we're just going to have to render it as is because we're out of time. We have to render something before we go here today, folks. So we're just going to go as is. This is not as far as I want to go. I want to do a lot more with the plants. I want to get all the plants sort of dialed in, and scale it, and then maybe a rock here and some stuff there. But we're going to just going to spend the last few minutes together just throwing some fog on it. So this is cool too.
It is.
What's that? You're like, hit it?
I just said it is what it
is. What it is at this point? Yeah. Well, listen, I understand if people have to go. I'm okay leaking for a little bit if we have to take, because I heard from Aaron and Tyson, like they used to do these streams and they would go for like 3, sometimes like almost 4 hours. And I just think that's crazy. But at the same time, I could see why if you're trying to do something like really, really, I don't know, ambitious, then I could see why you might need, that kind of time level. So we might take a little bit extra time.
And tell me, are some troopers with the sludge you did? Question mark.
What was that? Scatter some troopers with the selection. Yeah, you could scatter troopers that way too. And there's all kinds of cool parameters that I don't want to get into right now because you could randomize, you can cluster, you can tell them not to bump into each other, or you can tell them it's okay if they bump into each other. Like sometimes plants, you want them to overlap, and sometimes you actually say, no, don't touch each other, like stay away from each other. It's kind of cool things like fall-offs, distribution fall-offs, so tons and tons and tons of settings. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to pop over here and we're going to get our lighting set up first. So we're going to come over here and I'm just going to put material override. And the reason why I'm doing material override and I'm going to do fog. So volumetric environment is basically where in the V-Ray, I'm going to say I want fog to do a lot of the heavy lifting here. And I want to also look at my sun because I want to soften the sun because in this case, we're in the forest. So the light that hits the ground maybe is dappled. So what I want to do is maybe put my size multiplier. It's already up to 10. That's probably okay. I might want to even push that a little further to get some softer shadows, something like 20. I don't know. We'll see. The other thing I want to do really quick is I want to look at what SketchUp's, I could use an HDRI, but give me the time, I may want to just do like an afternoon shot where the sun is kind of coming in. So if you look at that reference image, there's this sort of light there's light streaks coming in. I don't know if we're going to be able to get that exactly, but that kind of tells you that that's where the light source is coming from. So what I want to do is see if I can change really quick, at least the shadow settings to see if I can get the light to come in from that right-hand side there. And
the one from YouTube says May prior to your first run.
It says, oh, I'm trying to read it. Sorry, Donovan, it's hard for me to hear exactly with a little bit of breakup, but I kind of get the gist of what you're saying. Okay, what shadow settings are going to work here? Turn that off. I'm going to switch those off. Okay. So we need to get the time of day so the light is kind of coming in from the right, and I don't know what time of day that is. Because I don't remember where my north orientation is. Like I can't remember where north is. Hey, that's actually kind of cool right there. Okay, let's do that. So we're gonna stylistically window styles. All right. So I'm going to do a quick test render as what's called a clay render. So a clay render is going to render, sorry, I should turn my shadows off for this to keep things running quickly. A clay render is basically going to see, so we can just look at the light by itself. So, so we're going to do, I'm going to click on my interactive render in, we're going to be rendering. We're here. Let's see. So this is kind of cool. I've got the light coming in from the right. I've got the fog coming in. So what I want to do is look at my exposure. And for right now, I'm going to pop this up, although I may want it more moody and push that back down. So the second thing, I'm going to keep this interactive render running. And the reason why is because when I set my fog, I want to actually be able to see, let's see here. I want to actually be able to see what that sort of does. So under volumetric environment fog, you can set the height. I want to go all the way up. So I want to go 1,000. And then I want to push the distance maybe back a little bit. So I'm going to maybe say 2,000. I might have to go back a little further. I think that looks pretty cool. Let's go with that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is stop this under camera. It took me a long time to learn this, but under V-Ray camera, they have what's called vignetting as an effect. So I actually like to use that because then I don't have to go into Photoshop or something like that. The less I have to go into Photoshop, the better. So I'm going to put set 1 as the vignette setting. And then there are some things I can do with lights, like artificial lights. If we want to hit lights like those God rays, if we want to get lights a certain way, but given the time, we're just going to have to run with it at this point, and I'm going to have to go back later in my own time and get the plants exactly where I want them and play a little bit with the lights and stuff like that. But I want to be respectful of everybody's time who's watching. I want to make sure that those that are still with us, they at least see kind of where we're going with this before we wrap up. I think that's it, actually. I mean, all I wanted to do was fog, check my shadow settings, and the rest of the stuff we're going to do with filters. So I really kind of want to just run a render. I'm going to turn my materials override off. So that's when I was making it white. And then I'm going to come over here and save. So anytime I make sort of major changes, a bunch of changes, I want to make sure I save those. And then I'm going to move this out of the chat window so that it's not overlapping, so we can see this a little bit better. I don't want to put it behind me either. Let's go ahead and just, we have a few minutes. Let's just let it go. Let's just let it go. I trust it. I trust the process. Trust the process. I'm a process person. So I'm doing a full render, what's called a static render. So this is going to take just a few more minutes. Not for a few more minutes. It's going to take a little bit longer. I don't know how long it's going to take because it's a low resolution version. I wouldn't do a 3,000 or 4,000 pixel resolution version right here live in front of us because I'm using my camera and my streaming and my SketchUp and my Google Meets. Everything's running right now. I don't have my render node set up. So a render node is where you can use a separate computer, and V-Ray gives you a additional seat, what's called a node. So it's not 2 V-Ray licenses. It just says that if you have a spare computer, which most of us have a desktop and a laptop, a lot of us do, you can assign a node to that other computer that you're not using. And then what you get with that is you get twice the rendering power. So if I was smart, if I had a little bit more time this morning, I would set up my laptop as a node, and then I would let that go. It wouldn't double it because my iMac's a little bit faster than the laptop, but it would increase the rendering time. So any questions you guys have right now? We're wrapping up. We're a few minutes away. Hopefully everyone can stay for just a few more minutes. I'm just going to do some filters and effects in post-production right here in V-Ray, right in the V-Ray frame buffer. I think it's going to make a huge difference. Love for you to stay for a few more minutes, and then we're going to wrap up shortly. I think we've done this justice. It's starting to come together. It's not exactly how I want, but more than anything, if Aaron's with us, I want to know if he's impressed because this was his model to begin with. And, like I said, I want to do it justice, carry the torch, so to speak. He's also my manager, so I have to, whatever Aaron says, I just have to do, and I have to be respectful. Okay. Let's do this. Go big or go home. We're going to do both. Okay, we're going to go big. We're going to go big for just a minute. The reason why is because it's going to allow me to see. I see that I've got a shadow here. I see that I've got a shadow where I didn't place that on the ground. So I would go back and I'd fix that, and I'd go back and put more ferns in. I've got so many things I want to do to this, but we're gonna run with it. So view, I want to make sure that if I can fit this, zoom to fit. There we go. Actually, you know what? I'll make this a little bit smaller, and then I'll zoom to fit. It's a little bit too big. View, zoom to fit. Cool. Is that good? Everyone can see that? Thanks. Thanks, folks. So what I want to do is look at Filmatic Tone Map. I'm going to put that on, and then I'm going to cool the image by doing color balance. So I'm going to pull a little bit of cyan, maybe a little bit of blue. Excuse me. I'm going to look at the white balance. I can cool that more, or I can warm it up. Again, I can color balance and white balance. I can work with those together. Look at the exposure. I can look at bringing that exposure down if I wanted it a little moody. My fog seems to have sort of obscured a lot of my bunker. So that's something I would do this test render. I would learn from that, and I would make some adjustments. But we're just running with it right now. And it kills me, to be honest with you. I have to I'm putting a brave face on, but it kills me to put something, to end the stream on something that didn't get where I wanted it to get to. It didn't get as far as it could. I have to just be okay with that for right now. So hopefully everyone at home, can forgive me, because yeah, okay, so I'm just playing right now. I'm just kind of playing. I don't know what the right answer is here as far as the final look and feel of this. I do kind of want it a little bit moody, but not so dark that you can't see it. Boost the contrast a little bit. All right. And look at the color balance one more time. Look at maybe the greens. Nope, too much green. Nope, too much magenta. But we can use these sort of colors together. We can do greens and reds together, to get a certain look. Or we can pull out, again, we can sort of counterbalance that by pushing the blues. So even just by playing with these colors, I think it was better before, where it was a little bit not magenta-y. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Well, Donovan, it is
Eric.
It's 1:02 my time.
It is
what it is. I hope, more important, it doesn't matter what I think about this. What matters is what our viewers ultimately think about our live stream. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves today. I say this if you watch any of my YouTube videos, I hope you learned at least one thing, because we love to entertain you, and we love to make this fun. We love to chit chat and hang out together as friends. But also, we're here to up our game. For me anyway, it's I'm up and trying to up my game always. And so I hope that everyone who joined, as long as you picked one thing up, and if you didn't, let me know. If you're just one of those SketchUp pros and you're like, I know everything that you showed and I do it and I have some things, well then, hey, tell me. Because I'll learn from you. I love it. Love the idea of learning from other people. So yeah, anything else? Any other Star Wars facts, trivia, any other comments that we want to kind of wrap up on? And then I'm going to play some dance music here in just a second.
People are asking, next week, part 2?
Next week, part 2. Well, part 2 would just be me doing what I ran out of time for, which is getting the ferns placed right and playing with the ground texture and adjusting the fog setting. I don't know if that's going to be that much fun. Also, I don't want to take that from... If Tyson is next, I have to look at our schedule, because Aaron went last week, I went this week, so Tyson would go next week. So I think by this time we probably killed Star Wars off, just like we killed Han Solo off in the reboot of the sequels. I don't know. I'm hoping that we didn't kill it off. I'm hoping we did it justice between the two of us. So again,
if anything, we could be like Disney from the dead if we need to.
Disney from the dead. That's right. We can keep bringing it back. Yeah. I could do this all the time. I could do this all day. I could render in SketchUp and V-Ray all day long, because it's so much fun. So the question is, but we want to mix it up. So we don't want to keep doing the same things, because we want to keep things interesting for everybody. We want to mix things up. We want to show different viewpoints, different tool sets, different perspectives, and of course we want to try new challenges. So we're probably going to leave this one here. Maybe over the weekend I will get some more energy back into it. I will come in and post it. So check out the forums. If you do follow us on forums.sketchup.com, it's not it, but you'll find it. It's the community forums if you search for that. I'll post something there. I'm going to detail the process, some of the things that we used. If you came in late, or if it went over your head, if I talked too fast, I'm going to kind of outline some of the things we covered here. So definitely pop back into that forum later. check that out. Stay involved. And other than that, yeah, we'll see. We'll check the forum also because we're going to announce what comes next week. And I'm also going to say before I sign off, subscribe right now because guess what? We're almost at 500,000 subscribers. And that's something that happened pretty quickly because I'm kind of new to the YouTube world and I've been in campus for so long. And so for me to be able to see our community grow that in that short amount of time has been really, really awesome. We're at 485,000 right now. And I just kind of want to see how quick we can get to that 500,000. So if you're not subscribed, go do that right now. It does us a huge favor. It just means you're part of our team. It also means you're going to get these notifications, like when we go live and stuff like that. So you don't come in late and miss half of it. So like, comment, share, subscribe, join the forum, check out our videos on learn.sketchup.com. So if you liked anything, we do have 2 on V-Ray, one for interiors, one for exterior. We have 1 on landscape. We've got another one coming for architects, again, for architecture and working with reference images, watermarks, and match photo. That'll be coming soon. I can't give you an exact date, but shortly. So definitely, if you haven't already done so, check us out on SketchUp Campus. You'll get a lot more tips and you'll do it at like a little bit more of a slower pace so you can follow along with us in real time. So anything else you want to say? I'm ready to kick off here when you are, Donovan.
I'm ready too, and I would just want to tell everybody for my bad audio. It'll be better next time. But thanks for joining us today. It was fun. It was a great time.
Well, I would just, again, I like the idea of just saying that you're doing your R2D2 impression or whatever. So you've got a little auto tune going on today, and that's awesome. I love it. Okay, thanks everyone. Stick around if you want. Listen to some music for a few minutes. I'm going to chat with Donovan offline here. We're only a few minutes after. Awesome. Thank you again, always, for letting me have this time with you and pass even just a few things that I do in my workflow, pass on to you. I'm going to leave you on that note. Have a great weekend. Go watch some Star Wars films, get inspired, and may the 4th or 5th, Revenge of the 5th? May Revenge of the 5th be with you.